News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
KVNU News Time is 4:03. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by U&I Furniture. For the second consecutive year, Utah has been selected as the #1 state in the union in a comprehensive study by a national news magazine. Governor Cox, announcing Utah's top ranking by U.S. News and World Report late Monday, said Utah has a vibrant, diverse economy and unsurpassed natural beauty, but what truly set the state apart is the people, who he said are charitable, collaborative, innovative, and work together to strengthen families and individuals. The news magazine annually rates the 50 states from top to bottom based on objective data from sources such as the U.S. Census Bureau and the Centers for Disease Control, taking into account a wide range of factors, including healthcare, education, infrastructure, and quality of life. Utah captured #1 status again, giving strong performances in categories like education, where Utah ranked second, economy and infrastructure ranked third in both, and fiscal stability ranked 6th place. Even in categories in which Utah received relatively high scores from the News and World Report researchers, including crime and corrections, healthcare, and opportunity, the Beehive State still outpaced rival states. The only category measured by the magazine in which Utah dropped in their ranking was in the natural environment. After receiving a score of 38th in air quality and 44th in pollution last year, the state overall environmental ranking in 2024 was 46 out of 50. KVNU News Time is 4:05. KVNU weather for tonight, more rain showers, possible snow showers tonight, just a slight chance of that. Even a stray thunderstorm is possible this evening. Overnight low around 30, north winds 10 to 20 miles an hour to add to the wind chill this evening. Chance of snow showers in the morning, then a chance of rain and snow showers in the afternoon on Wednesday, mostly cloudy, high around 50. It's 40 right now at KVNU. Don't get trapped by an air duct cleaner on social media. Call a company you can trust, a local company. Call the Duct Hunter in Logan, 770-4813.
Make mom's life easier and better with something from U&I Furniture. Take mom shopping at U&I for a new mattress. With all the sleep technologies, mom is sure to find a mattress that's just right. Moms also love U&I's section of popular chairs. Maybe she'll pick out an accent chair or a recliner, dining sets, sofas, loves, and sectionals. So much to choose from. Shopping for moms for Mother's Day has been a tradition at U&I for over 90 years. That's why they say you'll always find a better buy at U&I. U&I Furniture, downtown Logan.
KVNU News Time is 4:06. Utah Governor Spencer Cox has issued an order as of Monday for the flags of the U.S. and the state of Utah to be flown at half-staff on all state facilities in recognition of the passing of Sergeant Bill Hooser of the Santaquin Police Department, who died in the line of duty over the weekend. The governor asked for flags to be lowered to half-staff beginning immediately and remain at half-staff until sunset on the day of internment. The governor's office will send an additional notice indicating when flags may be returned to the full staff position. The governor also extends an invitation to all private citizens, businesses, and other organizations to participate in this recognition. And Miss USA title holder and former Miss Utah USA, Noelia Voigt, announced Monday that she will be stepping down from her current Miss USA role. She wrote on Instagram that her announcement may come as a big shock to many individuals, but recommended everyone to never compromise their physical and mental well-being. The 24-year-old Voigt was crowned Miss Utah USA while representing Park City on July 8th, 2023, and won the Miss USA title on September 29th, 2023. She promised she would use her bilingual and bicultural heritage to connect with people across the U.S. In her 7-month reign, she advocated against bullying increasing dating violence awareness and prevention and immigration rights and reform, according to her post. She also celebrated her Venezuelan heritage, being the first Venezuelan American to take home the Miss USA crown. She said the decision to resign was very tough. She wrote that deep down she knows that this was just the beginning of a new chapter for her. The Miss USA organization acknowledged Voigt's resignation on Instagram just an hour after her announcement. The organization said her well-being was a top priority. The pageant, which has a legacy dating back to 1952, says it is a champion of diversity and inclusion. KVNU News Time is 4:08. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
News Talk KVNU, 610 AM at 102.1 FM.
Advanced Surgery Center of Northern Utah now has a way to keep many patients moving. ROSA Robotic Technology by Zimmer Biomet. The ROSA robot allows surgeons to personalize the approach to knee replacement. Find out whether treatment is right for you. Visit Advanced Surgery Center northernutah.com. Not all patients are candidates for knee replacement with ROSA Robotics. Talk to a surgeon about whether joint replacement is right for you and the risks of the procedure, including the risks of implant wear, infection, loosening, breakage, or failure, which could require additional surgery. To set an appointment, call them today, 435-395-7171. That's 435-395-7171, or visit them at Advanced Surgery Center northernutah.com. That's Advanced Surgery Center northernutah.com.
This Mother's Day, surprise Mom with flowers and a piece of jewelry from S.E. Needham Jewelers. Choose from a large selection of birthstone, silver, and diamond jewelry. Or you may find something special for her in our family jewelry collections, or an S.E. Needham gift card may be timely. With the purchase of $99 or more, you'll receive a spring bouquet of flowers. Come shop today, open 10 to 7. For the people and occasions that matter most, S.E. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
The Above and Beyond Salute.
Hello?
Yeah, is Mike there?
Speaking.
Officer Graves, this is Will Feelwright calling from KVNU. I'd like to give you free lunch to Firehouse Subs. You okay with that?
Sure. I don't know what to say.
Well, someone called and told us about how you had recently been called out on an accident for a young teenage driver, and thanks to you, you really helped put her at ease. And on top of that, I understand you've been with the NOVA program for years, and I know those kids love you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
The Above and Beyond Salute on News Talk KVNU.
Hey, Joe, I thought you were retired.
Living on a fixed income is tough. So here I am, an essential worker.
I know. I mean, food prices are going up every day. Thank goodness for benefitscheckup.org.
Benefits what?
benefitscheckup.org. It's a free website where people over 60 can find help to pay for food, medicine, even utilities. I got $1,200 a year in benefits. Maybe it can help you.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
For the people.
We are waiting with bated breath for news from the Cache Republican Party meeting an executive committee tonight.
With Jason Williams.
And I'm really excited about this next segment. We have two guests here in studio. We're going to talk about something that we've talked about many times here on the show, but from a bit of a different angle.
Weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. It is Tuesday, May 7th. I'm Jason Williams. Bill Walter here in the studio as well. coming up, the For the People Book Club with Craig Peterson. We're going to be running through 3 books that are very timely right now, books that relate in one way or another to the Jewish experience worldwide in history and modern times here in America. So 3 books for the People Book Club today. Right now in hour 1, this is something I look forward to every month. It is our opportunity to sit down and talk to, quite literally, the experts. Joining us from Utah State University's Institute of Land, Water, and Air, the Janet Quinney Lawson Institute of Land, Water, and Air at Utah State University. We have with us Executive Director of the Institute, Brian Steed, and our good friend Anna over there as well, Anna McEntire, joining us. This has been, I don't remember how many of these we've done now. It's at least 6 months that we're into this. We started just before the fall report that is presented to Governor Cox or to the Utah governor, whoever it might be, each and every year. And I just had to start us off with this. We got some feedback from a listener after last month's episode, and a listener said, I feel like I've taken a college course and not paid for it listening to these segments. This has been so informative. And to me, that was really great to hear, because I know for all of you there at the Institute, that's what you're hoping for, right? Whether it's lawmakers, elected officials, the governor, the Senate president, people listening on the airwaves, people out there planning their spring cleaning, whatever it might be, you want to take the information that you have access to there at the Institute and make it palatable and digestible for the public. So some confirmation there that that's working from a random email from a listener. That was Marilyn sent that in. And thank you, Marilyn, for that email, by the way. So welcome back.
Thank you so much. It's always good to be here. It's good to hear that there's people out there listening, and I'm glad that at least one person considers it informative. So
I feel that way every day when I get a random compliment. I think, well, at least somebody was listening. No, it really, for me personally as well, it's been interesting to learn, at Bear Lake, the Great Salt Lake. Today we'll be talking about the Colorado River. I've learned a lot, but I've also discovered through just sitting here through these segments, nodding my head most of the time, these are really complex issues. And believe it or not, on social media, you wouldn't know that, because everyone has their, well, why don't we just do this? And some of these people are elected officials. There isn't, when it comes to the challenges to any of these, whether it's Bear Lake, whether it's the Great Salt Lake, whether it's the Colorado River, there is not really an easy one quick fix for any of these situations.
I think that's right. And I think that when you look at the complications that we face in society dealing with these, all of us care about it.
Yeah.
But all of us have different opinions on how we best go forward from this point. And it's going to take all of us to kind of get together and figure out the best way. And
Sure.
that's what makes our jobs fun, I think.
Yeah, and I think we spent a little bit of time yesterday talking about why do we do what we do?
Sure.
And we just keep going back to this mantra of when you know better, you can do better. And all of us are busy people. The people that we try to reach have to know a little about a whole lot of things. And no one has time to know everything about everything. So
Sure.
that gives us the opportunity for us to dig deep and better understand the issues and help communicate those critical pieces that we as citizens and policymakers and others need to know.
And for a lot of folks, when it comes to the Colorado River, myself included, we think, that's way down south. That's a San Juan County thing. That's a Grand County thing. And then another state thing, Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona, California, with Utah just, a little bit in the mix. That's, I think, the general attitude traditionally towards the Colorado River. I learned from the legislative session 2 years ago in a committee hearing. It was just casually thrown out there. Something like 70, 75, 80% of Utah's water in one way or another is dependent on the Colorado River. We don't think of water coming up.
That's right.
There's something, a mental blockage there. Water always goes down or across. But we pump, we pipeline, all of these things. So a huge part of water in Utah is dependent on the Colorado River, which clips the bottom part of the state.
Yeah, and in truth, it's not necessarily the place where we live here in Cache Valley, but everywhere on the Wasatch Front, because there was this decision made back in the day that the Wasatch Front was going to need an additional source of water. They went out and built an entire plumbing system called the Central Utah Project, and that plumbing system brings water over what would flow into the Green River, then eventually into the Colorado River, and now brings part of that over to Strawberry, and from Strawberry down into Utah Lake, and then brings it up from Utah Lake into the Wasatch Front. When you look at that, it's pretty amazing we did that.
Sure.
At the same time, people don't understand how complicated their lives could be if that river were in chaos. And so it's something that we want to get ahead of.
And I think,
to say the least,
Great Salt Lake is that connection where those of us who are in Cache Valley say, well, that still doesn't apply to me. I'm not a Wasatch Front drinker of Colorado River water, but water from the Colorado River eventually flows into Great Salt Lake. The Bear River is the main water source for Great Salt Lake. So if we are doing anything that affects the water that reaches there, then we're looking at how we're managing our Bear River water.
Sure.
And interestingly, if we were to cut back on our Colorado River water going to the Wasatch Front, they're going to make the difference somehow, and that's going to involve
us.
Exactly.
right. Because they're already got both eyeballs on us.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to see how interconnected this is. And, my coming at water in general, my experience was pretty limited. My education was pretty limited. I'd read Cadillac Desert. I'd read, there were some great books out there. Cadillac Desert, by the way, horrified me. I finished that book and I thought, what are we doing? And that's kind of the reality to some extent. I forget his name. We had a professor from the University of New Mexico on years ago. And he said, just casually in this interview, throughout this, he said, we never really knew how much water we were working with in the first place with the Colorado River. After the water study was done more than 100 years ago, they realized, well, that study was done after some of the wettest years that had happened before and since. And so we probably are working with bad data to begin with.
That's exactly right.
That's what you found as well.
So the law of the river, the law that governs the river, goes back to 1922. And in 1922, all the states were in a bit of a dispute because they were terrified that California was going to start using all the water that goes in the Colorado River. And that would give them some priority of time, right? First in time, first in right, as Western water laws is known for.
Sure.
That would give them some ability to, make sure that Utah doesn't use more water because California has rights to it downstream.
Sure.
That made everyone really nervous, and so they decided, hey, let's get together. Let's decide how we allocate this. And they broke it up into two big chunks of water. They called it the upper basin and the lower basin. And the upper basin, that's Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, New Mexico. And they said, we're going to let them have essentially 7.5 million acre feet every year. And we're going to let the lower basin states, and that's Arizona, California, Nevada, have another 7.5 million acre feet. And everyone thought that's great.
Sounds good, right?
When the river is flowing big, that's great. And they all thought that would leave plenty of water in the river. Turns out that the river was running especially high at the time they decided that. And so those allocations were always over what probably the sustaining capacity of the river was. You add into that Mexico, which is where the river is supposed to end, there in the Bay of California. And what that means is that Mexico wasn't getting any water for a long time. Mexico complained and said, hey, we need to get our water. And then it's all the more chaotic.
It's so many plates spinning, to make all of this work. And you had, it was interesting to watch the evolution of this from a public policy perspective. You had, just as recently as 2018-19, New Mexico had a plan, Colorado had a plan, Utah had a plan. I know here in Utah there was big talk, and the legislature even trying to grease the wheels a bit on a Lake Powell pipeline that would pump water from the Colorado River and Lake Powell across the state to St. George and Washington County. And that's, every state was kind of doing their thing, and then along comes this massive drought. I mean, we've technically been in it for a while, but it just slams home in 2021. And the conversation entirely changed at this point. I mean, some state leaders I don't think have woken up to that from my experience in interviewing some of them. But the reality is we're at a point now where the federal government is basically saying to all the states in the compact, look, get your act together, get a plan on paper, or we'll do it for you. And that's kind of where we sit, right? Is that a fair characterization?
I think that's right. And I think that's hard for the states. They have different interests. And those lower basin states feel like they have a guaranteed right to a certain amount of water, and that's that 7.5 million acre feet. The upper basin states feel like they've got that guaranteed right, but they're never consuming that much. We've been consuming about 4 million acre feet. And so when you look at that, you can understand why there would be some complaining and chaos between the different parties. That being said, the federal government's saying, hey, if you can't figure it out, we will. Yeah. And that makes all of us scared, I think.
Sure. Just like cities are scared here in Utah when it comes to housing, because the state is saying that to cities right now. Look, get your act together, get a plan in place, or we'll do it for you. It's the reality that you come to once a can has been kicked too far.
I've used that strategy with my kids as well.
It works. It does work.
It does.
I'll do it for you.
That's the exact thing that I was thinking of.
Yeah.
If you tell your kids, you figure it out or I'll figure it out for you.
My mom cleaned my room for me one time. I couldn't find anything, and I never let that happen again. That was a hard lesson as a 10-year-old. Just a quick aside on that, she put it in garbage bags and hid it in a closet to teach me a lesson. How cruel, right?
I think I've done that.
It worked. Well, I cleaned my room.
I hope the federal government does use that strategy to hide the water away somewhere.
Cut it all off.
Exactly.
It is, it does seem overwhelming when you think of, Mexico, California, all these states downriver from us, technically, and all the states upriver, and everyone has a justifiable interest in all of this. And then you see that drought come along and you see how bad it can get. It does, I think, serve as a reminder how precarious the water situation can be. We haven't been as responsible as we should have, and now we're kind of playing a lot of catch up on that. But to be optimistic, it seems like we've made a lot of headway with, let's be honest, very little pain or change for the average resident of each and every state involved, right? You would be hard-pressed to find someone who said, oh, yeah, my life is a lot worse now that we started conserving water. That makes me feel optimistic that we have a lot of things we can do.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think there's some good lessons there to say conservation can work and can make a big difference. When you look at, the amount of water being used in California today versus 10 years ago, they're actually using less water today than they were 10 years ago.
That's amazing. And despite the population.
And the same actually goes for us on the Wasatch Front. When you look at the amount of water we're using, we've been, despite tremendous growth, been relatively flatlined, and that's good news.
And I think we're looking at more solutions, more innovative solutions, and when we get those that help out humans, we also find ways that we're helping out the broader environmental system as well.
Sure. And that's a concern here as well. We talk about water as a resource, understandably, but we have to plan for, you want these rivers to stay healthy, because then the resource is useless if they're not a healthy river, right?
That's right, and I think that anyone that has spent time down in the southeastern part of the state on either the Green or the Colorado knows how special these places can be.
Sure.
We actually had an opportunity to take some reporters down, I guess it was 2 weeks ago now, to talk about kind of the interest on the Colorado River. We spent an afternoon on the river. It was very cold. I can't say that it was.
I can imagine.
I can't say that it was the best river rafting experience I've ever had.
Probably
but it was
beautiful, but very cold,
but terrifyingly cold. But learning that and seeing how awesome those systems can be, I think, is part of the story. It's millions of dollars in economic activity in that part of the state. And that would go away if we don't get it right as well.
I got to ride on a boat with a few people who had never been on the Colorado River before, even down to Moab. And to get to see that through their eyes, it reminds you just a little bit about what a special place that is in the state and in the country for sure.
It is really one of a kind. My experience every time I've been on or near either one of those rivers is I'm amazed they exist, because that is such a dry, kind of desolate area. And that kind of speaks to all of this as well, that it's a reminder that we do live in an area that wasn't meant for the way we live in this area, and I think it's fair to acknowledge that. It's not to say we got to yank everyone out of Washington County. People just shouldn't live there. It's too late, first off, but also we can do this, right? It's possible.
Well, and what's kind of cool about the Washington County story, and it's something that I think we've underreported on statewide, is that they had a whole talk of the Lake Powell pipeline. When that drought hit, they really put that plan on a shelf and have decided, what we need to do now is find out how we can live within our means. And they have some of the most aggressive conservation statutes and ordinances in the state. And that, listen, while nobody wants that, the fact that they've been able to make do with much, much less resource and still have the growth that they're having is really remarkable. And I think it gives me some hope that we as a state can figure it out.
We've all been kind of spoiled.
Yeah, and as we've chatted, we were able to bring in a number of people with different perspectives, different voices to talk about Colorado River perspectives.
Oh, nice.
But I think really what came out of that was, the idea of trade-offs. If you want to have growth, prioritize growth, but then figure out how you can work with much less water. If you want to have your green grass, then you're going to have to do it with a lot less people.
Sure. And it is a trade-off, and I say painless because, again, we've been somewhat spoiled. USU has, I'm sure you're aware of this, they have this great service where they'll come out and do an efficiency review of your sprinkler system, and I was absolutely shocked to find out how little water I could use compared to what I was using. It was not something that was on my mind previously. But we're talking hundreds of gallons a week, probably 3 times over, and it was literally 10 minutes of reprogramming the sprinkler system. The yard hasn't noticed. The trees are still alive. Everything looks the same. A lot of it is that simple, right?
Well, absolutely, and I think that's also one of those good news stories.
Sure.
So anecdotally, I work on a lot of Great Salt Lake issues. We've been pretty hyper-vigilant on who's using water where.
Sure.
We did find a park strip in the Ogden area that was receiving 700 inches of water per year being sprinkled. Yeah,
for a park strip.
Could have grown rice there, but the grass wasn't growing very well, and it's because they were over-applying water. And it's something that people we could certainly do as well as we're doing with by far less water just by being more mindful.
Sure. I was interested to see even this creeping down even to Logan City's Planning Commission when they were debating the design for the new mall area. Once that mall comes down, I went to one of those meetings so we could cover it here on the show, and I remember a Planning Commission member saying, if we're going to be watering grass, let's only water usable space. And they changed the design so those park strips would just have pretty rocks in them instead of those types of things actually do have a big impact, you're saying.
And they add up. And we call that functional turf versus functionless turf.
Sure.
I can tell you straight up, my park strip is functionless. I walk on it exactly once a week when I'm mowing it. And otherwise, it's out of sight, out of mind. I'm going to change that this year because I can't water it right.
Yeah.
And so that's the sort of stuff. And while that's a relatively small act from my part, that'll add up collectively.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, you're going to flip your strip. We're neighbors, so he's flipping his strip, and I'll flip my strip as soon as my kids stop running all over it. I have a pretty small yard, and that's very functional turf right now.
So the strip is functional.
But we look at other places in our house and in our yard and think, well, we don't spend time there. Does that really have to be overwatered grass?
Sure. And we've all learned that grass is amazingly resilient.
It is.
That is, and all this is to say, again, we've been somewhat spoiled. These transitions are not going to be hard. On a broader scale, back to states planning together and working with other countries like Mexico, how involved have institutes like yours and others from other universities is the door open? Has it been a willing invitation to have you be a part of the conversation?
Yeah, I think so. I think that people are looking for good ideas.
Yeah.
And so, and honestly, it's going to take all of us to solve these problems. As you mentioned at the outset, they're complicated, oftentimes much more complex than people have given it credit for. And while politics drives simple solutions, they say, well, let's just do this. Oftentimes, these problems can't be solved with simple solutions, and so we're going to have to get more into the details and provide good information. So I think there has been a willingness, and I'll just cite some of the work that, we have researchers at Utah State like Jack Schmidt that have been heavily involved in where things are on the Colorado, and he's become a household name to many policymakers around the nation in understanding how we use the Colorado and how we should use the Colorado.
Yeah, and I'll say it's important geographically that we have a wide spread of involvement. One thing that we're focused on is making sure all different types of people with different types of knowledge are able to contribute. So Jack's a hydrologist and he understands policy, but we've been working on really making sure that we have all types of researchers who are engaging on the project. So that includes those who are understanding agricultural irrigation optimization or...
Because that's a big part of this with the Colorado River, right?
Exactly. Or dam engineering or urban water use, or understanding social perceptions of how we view our water and how we can change behavior to help people use less. And that's the coalition that we've been working on as we are starting to manage the Center for Colorado River Studies to help engage in this new Colorado River Collaborative to be able to get as many perspectives and as many areas of expertise as involved in solution setting.
This is a great question from a listener here. Understanding that we're talking scientists, people who really know what they're doing when it comes to conducting research. Listener is curious if research through the Institute has ever been conducted on, well, I'll paraphrase it this way. Lawmakers have toyed with the idea a couple of sessions over of maybe making water cost a bit more. We subsidize it quite a bit here in Utah. Also, funding currently being made available, and I think increased recently, for secondary water metering, which is just kind of an awareness type metering. Mm-hmm. No bill will come, but you'll get a statement saying, here's how much you used. Wow. And that type of, for lack of a better phrase, sort of social engineering is being explored and even applied in places here in Utah. A listener wants to know if research has ever been done on the effectiveness of that type of thing.
So, yes. And in fact, Joanna Enterwada was one of the key people that did the research on secondary water metering, for instance. And the notion is if you provide them more information, them being the customer, if you provide the customer more information, what does that do to their use of water? And it turns out if you know you're using as much water as you are, and especially if you know that in comparison to what your neighbors are using, there was a 30% reduction in what people were using just by knowing. And so that was actually one of the great pieces of information that really led the state to adopt a secondary water metering standard, as well as to help subsidize the installation of those meters, because we're going to need more information to make those informed decisions.
Sure.
So that's one. Two, in terms of water pricing, it's something we're working on right now. We actually we're working with the Kempsey Gardner Policy Institute in Salt Lake, and also working with some economists here in Logan, trying to figure out what the right price of water is.
Sure.
And we do know that there is a relationship. Higher priced water, it has less use. And that's
the same way with gas. Gas for my car.
And that's another thing that's really great when we have an Institute for Land, Water, and Air. Instead of just looking at a singular problem, we looked at water pricing in the context of addressing water issues on Great Salt Lake. But so many of the same things that we do to save water for Great Salt Lake are the same types of things we need to do for other water issues, including the Colorado River.
Sure.
I'm going to give you an anecdote on pricing water as well. This is not research-based, but it's my life-based. I was living in Layton, Utah. They adopted a tiered water pricing, and I was the head of the Department of Natural Resources for the state, and I got a relatively angry phone call from my wife saying, how much water have you been using? And it turns out that it was the first month that they had adopted a tiered pricing system to where it's lower price. If you use lower, you go up higher and you pay a higher price.
The rate goes up.
And the rate goes up. And in this case, we had tipped over even a higher rate than that, and it caught our attention, and we used less water the next month.
That honestly, I'm excited to see the state exploring this, and also excited to see them being careful about it. But still, it's a reality I think that all of us need to accept that we've been spoiled. We've had a lot of luxury when it comes to water, and we have always lived in a desert state. It is, I know here in northern Utah, we kind of look around and think, oh, there's so much water. But we're a third of the state, and the other 2/3, they're looking at us going, yeah, there is a lot of water up there. So it's great to be able to connect northern Utah, even southeastern Idaho and southwestern Wyoming to the Colorado River down in the Four Corners area and more. And I hope for listeners this has all finally come together as one big picture for you, because these debates are far from over. Policy discussions will dominate legislative sessions for many to come, and also at the federal level, discussions over the future of the Colorado River. The more we know, the better we can go in informed and ready for these conversations to both stick up for Utah, but also make sure that we have a good plan going forward. I'm so excited to have these conversations, and thanks to both of you. We have us here in the studio with us today, Executive Director Brian Steed and Managing Director Anna McEntire of the Janet Quinney Lawson Institute for Land, Water, and Air. And to you both, thank you for making some time for us today. I know you're headed south to Salt Lake for some important stuff, so drive careful. It's snowing, quote unquote, right now. It is out there on the roads.
Keep in mind, we need the water. That's
yeah,
all
we
I
need
say.
the water.
Just tell people we need the water.
Brian loves it.
Every time there's even a raindrop, he gets excited.
Exactly. It's sad but true. Yes, my neighbors and friends all kind of hate me right now.
You're out
He's
doing
the happiest guy
dancing
in the
the
valley.
street while they're
that's right.
shoveling snow.
Yeah, that's right.
Thanks again to you both for making the time, and looking forward to seeing you next month.
Hey, thanks so much for having us.
To our listeners, if you'd like to learn more, you can connect directly yourself with the Institute and the research we've been discussing here at usu.edu/ILWA, Institute, Land, Water, Air, ILWA at usu.edu. And we'll be back after these headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:39, and the news is brought to you by Roof Rescue. The family of Dylan Rounds is creating a nonprofit in his honor. Rounds was found on April 9th in a remote area in Box Elder County, according to the Box Elder County Sheriff's Office. The family said in a statement last week that they had hoped for a different outcome. They knew from the start that Dylan was no longer alive. The recent development means the investigation has gone full circle, and now they can finally bring Dylan home and close this chapter. The remains found were confirmed to be Rounds by the Utah Office of the Medical Examiner. The statement read that the family finds solace in knowing that Dylan was surrounded by a network of caring individuals who spared no efforts in the search for him. In an effort to keep his memory alive, the Rounds family has created a nonprofit organization called Dylan's Legacy. It will serve as a beacon of hope and support for families navigating the distressing ordeal of a missing loved one and the frustration of getting authorities to act accordingly. Through the nonprofit, the family is hoping to provide resources, guidance, and emotional support to those in a similar situation. In May 2022, Rounds was reported missing by family members after they were unable to contact him. Later that year, James Brenner was identified as a person of interest in his disappearance. Brenner used to live on his family's property and worked with Rounds, according to the Rounds family. On March 3rd, 2023, Brenner was charged with first-degree murder and desecration of a body. Well, the only constant in construction is weather delays, and due to weather delays, crews will be placing the final asphalt and lane striping as early as Friday, with the full roadway opening on Saturday, May 11th. So drivers can expect continued lane closures on Main Street and turning restrictions at 100 North in Smithfield, as well as traffic delays and congestion throughout the corridor. Final work includes pouring the concrete curb, the gutter and sidewalk, milling the temporary asphalt, and placement of permanent asphalt, placement of safety fencing on the culvert, and other punch list items. And struggling to give teachers meaningful raises, some school districts are adding a new perk: subsidized on-site child care for their kids. In states such as Idaho and Texas, funding for early childhood education is limited, and high-quality, affordable child care is hard to find. So by providing daycare, schools hope their teachers won't have to make the choice between career and parenthood. The American teaching workforce remains largely female, and data shows women are more likely than men to leave their careers to care for children. The child care centers fill another role as well. They help prepare little kids in the district for kindergarten. KVNU News Time is 4:43.
Roof Rescue is your local roofing specialist, dedicated to keeping your home safe and dry no matter the weather. Their team of experienced roofers is here to serve you, providing top-quality service at affordable prices. From minor repairs to complete roof replacements, they've got you covered. Remember, your roof is your first line of defense in protecting your family from the elements. So don't wait until the next storm to discover your roof problems. Call Roof Rescue today at 435-999-4268. They're your trusted local roofing experts, here to keep your home safe and dry. Roof Rescue, celebrating 10 years of providing watertight peace of mind.
ABC News, I'm Chuck Sievertson. Jurors appeared riveted to Stormy Daniels testifying about a sexual encounter with Donald Trump in 2006, which he says led to hush money payments 10 years later during the presidential campaign. At the New York courthouse for the Trump criminal trial, ABC's Olivia Rubin.
It was so damning inside of that courtroom. Many people could not believe what they were even hearing about a former president who was in the courtroom with his family and some campaign staff hearing about a sexual encounter.
The judge overseeing the former president's classified documents case has indefinitely postponed the trial. Legal issues over how classified info is to be used need to be resolved. Police have cleared a pro-Palestinian tent camp at the University of Chicago. Administrators say they had safety concerns. TikTok and his parent company in China is suing the U.S. government, saying a new law potentially banning the app is unconstitutional. This is ABC News.
KVNU weather for tonight. It looks like mostly cloudy skies is our forecast. Slight chance of rain showers, snow showers, and even a stray thunderstorm this evening. Low around 30, north winds 10 to 20 miles an hour this evening. Chance of snow showers Wednesday morning. Chance of rain and snow showers in the afternoon. Cloudy, high around 50. Breezy Wednesday night. Winds out of the east 15 to 25 miles an hour after midnight Wednesday night, but partly cloudy skies. Slight chance of showers and thunderstorms Thursday afternoon, but more canyon winds again Thursday into Thursday night. Our high today so far has been 48. Right now it's 44 degrees at KVNU. U&I Furniture has been located in the same place for 94 years. That doesn't happen unless you're doing something right. For 94 years, family owned and operated. 5 generations of taking care of customers. There's always a better buy at U&I. U&I Furniture, downtown Logan, 28 West, 1st North. Get more news at CashValleyDaily.com. Let's check Wall Street now with Edward Jones.
This is Ron Arnold of Edward Jones, Abbreviated Day Financial Market Report for May 7th. Equity markets closed mostly higher on Tuesday, with the S&P 500 posting a daily gain for the 4th consecutive day. Leadership was balanced, with most sectors of the S&P finishing higher, led by real estate and utilities, both of which gained over 1%. Overseas, Asian markets were mixed overnight, while European markets closed mostly higher in response to better-than-expected retail sales data from the Eurozone. Treasury yields finished lower once again, with the 10-year yield down to around 4.45%. The 10-year yield has pulled back meaningfully from its recent peak of 4.7% in response to last Friday's softer-than-expected jobs report and commentary from Fed officials that signaled that additional rate hikes are unlikely. On the corporate front, shares of Disney were under pressure, declining roughly 9% after the company reported earnings that exceeded expectations but issued guidance below consensus estimates. With markets closing higher, the Dow was up 32 points, closing at 38,884. The Nasdaq was down 17 points at 16,333, and the S&P was up 7 points at 5,188. In the bond market, the 10-year Treasury yields are trading at 4.45%, and in stocks of local interest, Autoliv was up 11 cents at 123.96. Chevron was up 37 cents at 162.67. Dominion Energy was up 71 cents at 52.12. Home Depot was down $1.60 at 340.69. Kroger was up 7 cents at 55.31. Lowe's was down 24 cents at 231.46. McDonald's was down $1.80 at 267.50. Microsoft was down $4.20 at 409.34. Nucor was up 77 cents at 171.79. Philip Morris was up 8 cents at 97.53, and Walmart was up 75 cents at $60.62 a share. In commodity markets, the crude oil price was flat at $78.46, and the spot price of gold was down $8.20, closing at $2,323. This is today's financial market report brought to you by Edward Jones and Tron Arnold, a member SIPC, serving individual investors with personalized attention and long-term financial advice at 132 North Main in Logan. If you want more information, feel free to give us a call at 435-753-2915.
Treat your mom with nothing but the best this Mother's Day. The Elements Restaurant is serving a delicious brunch buffet complete with slow-roasted prime rib and pork loin carvings, seafood, chicken, and more. Don't forget made-to-order omelets, hot pancakes with maple or coconut syrup, sausage, bacon, crepes, and more delicious dishes, including a full dessert bar. Because she's special, treat Mom to something extraordinary. Mother's Day brunch from Elements, Sunday, May 12th from 11 to 2. For reservations, call 750-5151. 750-5151. Buffet will be located inside the Riverwoods Conference Center.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Wednesday on This Morning, America's First News. Lessons from Israel's war so far against the terror group Hamas, like the limitations of robotics and the influence of social media. Also, the production of oil and gas is just one awkward topic as President Biden seeks re-election. Here are the other two. And a vacation guide for maximizing your paid time off this summer. Wednesday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news and talk.
No matter what the condition, DD Auto and Salvage can get your vehicle off your property. Now is the time to make some extra cash by calling DD Auto and Salvage. Let them pay you for that old junk vehicle. DD Auto and Salvage makes it easy to get rid of your junker vehicle, paying you the most money possible. Pickup is available. Call 787-1204.
That's 787-1204.
And call today. See store for details.
Mother's Day is here, and there's no better place to buy a gift that Mom will love than Cox Honeyland in South Logan. They have a huge assortment of gift baskets filled with some amazing goodies. If your special person loves to decorate outdoors, Cox Honeyland has outdoor spinners and garden decor on sale. Plus, don't forget to grab Mom some of their famous fudge or popcorn. That's Cox Honeyland and Gifts, 1780 South, Highway 89, Logan.
Keep chasing the wild, Utah. There's no better way to get out there than with the Polaris Expedition. With a long-range fuel tank, seating for up to 5, and Fox suspension, you and your crew will be riding from dawn until dusk. Polaris. Think outside.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Thanks again to Brian Steed and Anna McEntire for joining us, especially where they already had a very, very busy schedule today. They are scheduled to speak at an event in Salt Lake over the next couple of days, and had to get down there to check in, but they didn't want to cancel on Cache Valley listeners, and I respect that. Amazing stuff. We had a listener chime in during the break, and I get this, but a listener came in and chimed in and said via the Google chat, said, this is kind of overwhelming, when you consider how much population is growing and is projected to grow here in Utah and other states, and you see how precarious our water situation can be, and how a couple of years of bad drought nearly cratered the whole system, which is really not much of an overstatement, other than we know it'll likely be temporary. If it were to continue into a third, fourth, fifth year, as bad as it was in 21 and 22, we could be in some serious trouble. and I'm talking drinking water trouble. And so it is good to recognize that, but it's important to not be alarmist about this, because as Brian told us, as Anna told us, as we've discussed with lawmakers who are on top of this with great intentions, if not always great ideas, because sometimes they aren't always the best ideas coming out of the Utah legislature. But that's why people like Anna and Brian are here, and why research at USU is important to throw into the mix to make those decisions smarter and better formed when they happen at the legislative level for a state. It shouldn't overwhelm you. It is overwhelming to think about, but don't let it overwhelm you to the point where you feel like, nothing I do is going to make a difference. Because as we discussed with Brian and Anna, as you can see through the data that I've posted, a couple of links to some stories from the Quinney School of Land, Water, and Air. Janet Quinney Lawson, Institute for Land, Water, and Air. I finally memorized it enough. I actually said it right the whole time they were here. Did you catch that, Bill? Were you proud of me?
Very good. Yes, I was beaming. 6 months
of these segments, and I've never gotten it right until today. And I got it right 2 out of 3 times. But when you look at what they're putting out, the policy briefs for lawmakers, the data and blog posts just for general information seekers from the public, we're in a position where we can do some pretty big lifting with really minor inconvenience for the average Utahn. And I'm not saying... Actually, I will say, we have been, I think for most people, the word unintentional fits. I know some that were intentional, but they're few and far between and irresponsible in other ways too. But for the average responsible, conscientious Utahn, we just didn't know better. Water was always available and never really in short supply. And we're surrounded by it here in northern Utah. In southern Utah, maybe it's a little tighter, but those rivers are big and they flow steadily. And I think we just enjoyed, up until the last maybe 10 years as a state, Utah, and I think this probably goes for other states equally, but speaking only of Utah, or only for Utah, we just enjoyed this luxury, and the time has run out on living that way. Now, that doesn't mean that quality of life has to be decreased. That doesn't mean that we have to, start taking drastic measures when it comes to, oh, no, you can't do that. You're not going to see a law from Utah lawmakers anytime soon banning water parks or municipal pools or anything like that. I mean, there's a lot of water that is, quote-unquote, wasted there, evaporation and more. But we can still have those things, but it's only going to be possible if we cut everywhere we can. But if you look at the areas where there is the most room for improvement, we haven't even begun to do everything we can. And all of this, again, will be with minimal pain and effort for the average Utahn. It literally is as simple as cutting, if you water with a sprinkler system in your yard 3 days a week, cut it back to 2 or even 1. Right now, no one should be watering anything. I saw some sprinklers going off on some city-owned property in a certain part of Cache Valley. I won't say where, Providence. That doesn't need to happen. Now, I'm cutting some slack. Maybe they were testing the system. Maybe it was an automated system that someone forgot to check. Accidents are going to happen. But little things like that in our yards and in our Brian mentioned park strips. And as you saw, Brian and Anna had 2 different approaches to the park strips there. Anna said not a huge yard there at her place, so that park strip grass, very important to her kids. For Brian, he said he can't remember the last time he walked on it. And so he was swapping his out for something else. We've all seen these. There's a parking lot that I see a few times a week if I'm being responsible and going to the gym, in which there is probably a 10-foot across divider between parking areas in this gigantic parking lot where there are multiple stores and retail spaces and restaurants all in the same area. and there's this big strip running through it with grass, and it's being watered to keep it green. I don't know that anyone would notice if that were replaced with colorful pebbles or rocks and the sprinkler system decommissioned. That's just one strip, but that's probably hundreds of gallons of water, and you do that in every parking lot where you can throughout the state of Utah, and you've just bought us 5 years of flexibility on the water picture. So, I mean, these are painless changes. Watering less doesn't cost you a thing but some thinking time and maybe 10 minutes to reprogram the sprinkler system. Now, some people may choose, and we might get to a point where the state is, I don't think we'll ever get to the point, in fact, I guarantee we never get to the point, in our lifetimes at least, where the state is mandating this type of thing outside of on their own, city and county property and state property and things like that. I doubt in our lifetimes you'll ever see the state of Utah mandate for the average residents certain types of water free entirely, or at least water sensitive or water conscious landscaping and yard designs. But we're already to the point, and I think this will continue to grow as a tool where the state is incentivizing in minor ways adopting those types of things. So it's a choice, it's voluntary, and it's only for those who are interested, but you can get a little kickback, a tax break, or a grant to do the changeover, things like that, so it doesn't hit your pocketbook as hard to switch your yard to a water-wise or completely water-free yard. And some people here in Cache Valley have even done that. In fact, there's a nice home. I'll get some pictures one day if I can get permission from the homeowner. And I know him. I wouldn't just go knock on a stranger's door, believe me. But there's a yard in the South Logan area where they just planted. They left the grass. They didn't take the time to rip it up, and that didn't work. So eventually, they actually tilled and lost the grass, and then just replaced that dead grass with a bunch of native plants and shrubs. It looks very different from the yard that most of us are used to seeing, but it still works. And they completely decommissioned their sprinkler system. They don't water at all. So again, that's an extreme measure, but it gives you an idea of how much daylight there is between that and the little changes we can all